Come join Melissa and her guests on the Chats from the Blog Cabin podcast. From North Carolina, this podcast will have you feeling like you've known these folks for years. Listen in as they chat about life, culture, current events, and more, all with a special Southern flair. Curl up with your favorite beverage and get ready to be entertained. Tune in now for a unique experience that's fun and insightful.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. You know, the show I virtually invite people into the Blog Cabin to chat about life. And I will say, honestly, that I have never read a book so much, and I told you this, Steph, before we came on, that I wanted to highlight almost every page of the book. And I mean, every page of this book spoke to me. So before we get into the choice is yours, Steph, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So first, that just gives me chills to hear you say. So thank you for that. It means so much. It can be a very lonely process writing a book. So to have people read it and give feedback is really extraordinary. So thank you for that. So my name is Stef Ziev, and I'm an executive and life coach. And I started my career in the entertainment industry. Actually, I lived in LA for a long time, and I worked in television and film there. And then I moved to New York, just 2 months shy of 9/11. So that's a whole other story. But I became the vice president of the Oxygen Network, which now is all true crime. But then I was actually overseeing the scripted division. And so I was doing made for TV movies and, kind of the feel good stuff. So it was a job I loved. And also there was a calling that was greater, that was about coaching. And so in 2007, I started my coaching practice, and it has not necessarily been all success or all uphill from there. I absolutely had some bumps in the road, and but thankfully I'm on the other side of that. And then I just wrote my book that came out in May of 2023.
And that book, I'm telling y'all, you need to buy this book because it's life-changing. But what made you decide to take that big leap? Because obviously you probably took a big pay cut too when you stepped out of the entertainment industry and went into coaching. So what made you decide to finally do that?
My short answer is I had a boyfriend and a boss who I didn't like. And I say this, I'm Jewish, but I always say it was like my come to Jesus moment, where it was like, oh, I don't like these two things and they're not working. And what I really love is personal and professional development. And I really love that about my current job because I was a vice president. So I did get to manage people. I led a team. I loved my people. And at the same time, I really, my heart and mind and spirit was really more aligned with this idea of supporting people to be authentic and honest about their own mission, their own purpose, their own vision for themselves and the world. And so I didn't even know what coaching was at this time. And to be honest, what really kind of all of the stars aligned in so far that I was able Oxygen was being bought by NBC. There was a huge merger it wasn't even a merger, it was a sale. So a lot of people were getting their jobs cut. I was in a meeting with my COO and she said to me, we are going to do everything in our power to keep you. And I found it almost felt like I was being pushed forward by this thing behind me that didn't really exist in the physical form. And it was almost like I was pushed, and I found out loud of my voice came the words, Lisa, no. And I don't really know what that was, but it was clearly some higher part of me that was putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is not my happy place anymore. And I don't know what's about to occur, but I'm going to choose out. So I was able to do that with a severance, which probably made the choice a little bit easier. And I don't know that I failed miserably though, with like 3 years after that. So my opportunity for growth continued in both like the highest and the lowest of levels. But I think that to answer your question, what allowed me to make that choice was both I did have the security of that severance. And also I think just this higher calling, and this was the right opportunity, and I took it, and I'm so grateful I did.
Was there ever a moment when you're like, what am I doing? Why did I say this? Oh my gosh, where did that come from?
Yes, especially when I was 40 years old and I was about to turn 41 and I had to leave my home in New York City and move back to where I grew up in Pennsylvania and move in with my parents. So that
Oh,
was
wow.
certainly a time where I was like, what did I do? And why did I do this? And what was I thinking? So 1,000% yes.
So you've already left your job. You're thinking of, you want to go into coaching, but how did you go about getting into the coaching? What did you take courses? How did that all come about?
So while I was working in television and film, I also, when I was living in Los Angeles, I was actually in a master's program for psychology. So I was already kind of in the world of that personal and professional growth and self-help and kind of inner growing. And then the people that I went to school with, a lot of them had also gone later. Coaching kind of became a little bit more known in 2000, and like when I started to look into it, it was 2006. So it was a while ago. And yes, there is there's a certification process. There's an overarching organization called the ICF, which is the International Coaches Federation. So coaching programs who are accredited go through that program. I did choose to go to a program that was accredited, and I became certified. And in my program, it was a 9-month program. There's lots of different programs that some are accredited, some are not, some are a weekend, some are 9 months. So it doesn't necessarily have, it's not a one size fits all necessarily, but for me, I went the route of certification.
So why do you think there are so many coaches out there now? Because it seems like every time you turn around, there's like a new coach is popping up, or I'm looking on Facebook and a friend of mine is like, oh, I'm doing coaching, and another friend, oh, I'm doing coaching, or I'm doing coaching, or either they're not coaching, but they're taking part in coaching. Why do you think that has come about?
I mean, I really think that, we're living in a time where we do have the gift of self-reflection. I mean, when you and I are talking today, there are, 2 wars going on, right, in the world, which is tragic. And, my heart goes out to all the people impacted. And but we in America, I think, have been pretty lucky that we haven't had to focus. We've been able to focus on ourselves and our own happiness, maybe unlike the generations of the past who've been dealing with much more externally and much more than we have necessarily, in some ways. So I do think that I think we have the privilege in some way of asking, like, what do I really love to do? What do I really, what lights me up? How do I want to be of service? I don't think that we necessarily, like, obviously there's some things that we have to do, right? And I put that in air quotes only because it's like, we have to eat if we want to live. We have to sleep. We have to eat, right? Now we can choose not to do those things, and then there will be a consequence, right? But we also have the luxury right now to say, if I'm not happy in this job, we do live in, there's an abundance. If you choose to look at it like this, you can look for and find and see the abundance of life and opportunities that is all around us. I mean, you are chatting from a blog cabin, like you made your cabin happen, right?
Yeah.
And that is an extraordinary thing. Now that idea came through you. That was yours to build and birth. That wasn't my idea. Yeah. I wrote a book called The Choice Is Yours. That was my seed, right? That was my acorn within that became the oak tree, right? So I just think that people are asking themselves, what do I really love? What am I really here to do? Who am I really here to be? And then just like we do at the gym, where at the gym, our trainers, if you have a personal trainer, the design is to allow that person to help you both create a plan to meet your goals and then support you to get there. And that's the same exact thing as a coach. And I think that people want and really deserve that support.
That is so true. We need to take a brief commercial break, but when we come back, you're going to read part of your book to us, correct?
Correct. So excited.
All right, we'll be right back.
People welcomed me and they knew the pain of the journey that we'd been on because they'd been there too.
Other Parents Like Me is an online community, peer-led, for parents with kids struggling with mental health and or substances.
It's a space that's safe. Feels like I can actually share what's going on.
We offer 15 daily support groups per week and live speaker talks on Thursdays, as well as a monthly expert panel.
We also have a resource hub that has a toolkit. This includes over 1,000 articles, podcasts. There's a glossary with the most recent and relevant terms. And we have a directory that's been vetted.
The overwhelming feeling when we're sitting in a meeting and I'm telling my story and I see others shaking their head, tears falling. You know, they understand this roller coaster and they're along for the ride.
And we are back chatting with Stef, who is the author of The Choice Is Yours. And you are going to read us part of your life-changing book. I'm telling you, the highlights. You're just going to run out of pack of highlighters if you read this book.
Can I ask you something before I read?
Yes.
What is, I know it's amazing that you highlighted everything. Was there something specific that spoke to you that you think your listeners would love? Because I have my own idea about what to read and I might do that. But I just am curious, was there one part that really, really like struck you?
I'm looking at my notes right now, and it's like the words that we speak to ourselves, because, you know, my family dynamic hasn't always been great. So I was always one that didn't have the positive. Being the youngest, I didn't have all the positive. I was always compared to my sisters. So in my mind, I'm still being compared to them, regardless of whatever else I do. And so when you're talking about, you know, you have the ability to do it yourself, put everybody else aside, and that our words change our perspective, and the words we speak to ourselves change our perspective a whole lot, because I still find myself with that negative self-talk. And I'm like, no, that's got to get out the door. But I catch myself more now than I did before.
That's awesome. And, you know, I mean, just to that point, thank you for sharing that. And the point of the book is this is a practice, right? That I am not like, I really don't come as the expert of anything but myself. And I'm still learning that. So this is a book that is really just supporting you to access your own inner expertise and to use whatever speaks to you. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I am going to choose to read the conclusion of the book, which is not a spoiler. In fact, if I didn't have all this, the introduction has its own kind of feisty title, which I don't know if I can say on air, but it's it's FU Firewalk. So that's something that just little teaser for some fun storytelling. But what I want to read is the end, which gives really kind of the point of why I wrote the book. And I call this chapter, Your Choices Matter. And this is really what I want to share. And this is what speaks to me the most. So I start with a quote from Jean-Paul Sartre, which says, "We are our choices." So it says, there's a Native American parable about a Cherokee elder teaching his grandson about life. "A fight is going on inside of me," he said to the boy. "It is a terrible fight, and it is between two wolves. One is evil. He has anger and envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego." He continued, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? The Cherokee elder simply replied, the one you feed. These wolves are all the different people who sit around each of our respective tables. Which one we feed or put at the head of our table is our choice. That choice impacts our actions impact our outcomes, and our outcomes impact the world. This entire book has been predicated on the statement I made in chapter 1. The more intention we bring to the choices we make, the more power we have over the results we create. When we can each take personal responsibility to lead with our highest purpose, those qualities get amplified. Yet if we stay in a perfunctory state and don't make our choices consciously, we're dispersing energy that may be damaging, like the butterfly effect, which says that something as small as the flutter of a butterfly's wing can ultimately cause a typhoon halfway around the planet. Our choices create a consequential ripple. What kind of ripple is up to us? Each choice we make has the potential to create unity or division, build a bridge or a bomb, or form a friend or a foe. The power is yours right now to choose. When we make a choice, we not only change our own world, we also change the whole world. It's from this place that peace is possible. This is why your choices matter. We will always be ebbing and flowing, calibrating and recalibrating. And when you begin a statement by declaring, I choose, it instantly shifts you from an external to an internal focus. This is where your truth lives. My hope is that you use the tools shared throughout this book often and wisely, that they help you to transform yourself and the world in ways that are wanted and needed. And in the process, that you strengthen your ability to own your value and live and lead with more joy, ease, and purpose. The choice is yours.
I love that. Now, where did the idea come from the book? When did you decide, okay, after I've coached for a while, I'm going to write this book?
I mean, I started writing the book probably in 2015, and it was a totally different book at the time. And then, so I feel like I've been writing it for years and years and years and years. And the introduction that I mentioned a little bit ago shares a story where I went to this Tony Robbins event, and I did not give myself a choice. And as a result of that, I got burned, though not literally, figuratively. And then later I was presented with another opportunity to kind of take my power back. A lot of this is also about it's about owning our power, using our power of choice, choosing where and to whom we give our precious energy. And I feel like for me, the aha moment in writing the book was when I went to on the opposite side of that experience with my at the Tony Robbins event, where I unconsciously chose to do an event that I didn't feel safe doing. I had another experience at another event where I chose not to do an event because I didn't feel safe doing it. And that was a huge shift for me. And it was through that power of choice about actually saying, I choose to not do this, that I really felt the book was, it was time for the book, because I had already been doing all this work with clients, and everything in the book is my approach to coaching. And that became kind of the way in which I formulated the message, and it was kind of ignited by the one experience and then the other experience, and that they were on opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. How much research did you do? Because I noticed that you talk a lot about the frontal lobe and the cognitive functions. Like you talk about the positive words like joy and serenity. They strengthen areas in our frontal lobe. But when we have negative words, we're not being strengthened. How much research did you put into this?
I honestly didn't do a terrible amount of research. I did quote that book because I kind of looked for something that would affirm with science that which I know to be true. So I did find that information. And I mean, the truth is, there was a great I think it was a movie, or I know it's a book, and I know I saw it as a movie or something. There was a great movie long ago. It was called Messages from Water. Did you ever do you know this? And I
No.
think it's a book. And there was a Japanese researcher he was a Japanese photographer, and he did this like incredible, very, very magnified photography of water. And what happened was he took like jars of water, and he put a different word on each of them. One word had love, one had joy, one had generosity, another had hate, another had evil, another had anxiety, stress, worry, right? And what he did is he monitored, I think he left it in the water for a while, like a month or so, and then he took pictures of the difference between those, like the water that was in the more positive words and the water that was in the negative words. And it looks like the difference between like an ice castle that's gorgeous and filled with the nuance of snowflakes, and like just deep dirt garbage, like mold, disgusting. Like, it is fascinating. So I didn't do a lot of research. I just have been in the world of my own self-study for a long time. And I've been practicing I've really been practicing for years the different, to try to really use my own advice and say, I choose to do something, or I choose not to do something, but to make everything a choice. Even if it's like, I choose to do laundry, I choose to eat this piece of cake, I choose to eat this piece of salmon and be healthy today, right? Because otherwise we become a rebel to our own lives and to ourselves when we say have to and should, which we all do all the time. Unconsciously. When you bring a different level of consciousness to it, it can change not only, I think, our neuro pathways, right? As per the little bit of research I did for the book, and that translates to how we feel and how we show up and how we interact and the energy that we're rippling out into the world. And that has impact,
Another thing you say is also pay attention to the story. If a story is sucking your energy out, and I don't have time, or you say something, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that, then that's something that maybe you shouldn't be doing to begin with, correct?
Or I wouldn't say maybe you should or shouldn't. It's like, I think it's an opportunity to just say, okay, like, how is this story? I talk about it as your story sucks, change it, right? And when I say that, to your point, I mean, your story, if you're not conscious of it, might be sucking your energy, your time, your joy, right? Your essence, your purpose, your life. And I think that we, as especially I think Americans in society, that we get a badge of honor for working hard and playing hard for some reason. And I'm not about that. I don't agree with that. I don't think we should do anything hard. I don't think we need to add hard to anything we do. And if it is getting in the way of actually you being more joyful or being more productive, then it might not be serving you. So I like to think about it as like changing, becoming aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves and changing those stories that suck into stories that serve. So if I operate from a place of, oh my God, I don't have time, or my boss is limiting me, or, I mean, do you have a story that you might add into that? I have one. I should be 10 pounds lighter,
There you go. Everybody has that story, I think.
So then the opportunity is to be like, well, that story sucks. It's a terrible story. I'm being mean to myself. I'm maybe not performing at my highest and best at work. I'm spending so much time thinking about how much time I don't have that I'm actually wasting time. Right. So how do we transform that into, instead of I can't, or I don't, or I should, or I have to, because those are normally the beginnings of those stories that suck. What do we do? First of all, you can write all those down and just get them on the page. So there's an opportunity to just extract them from your body, mind, and spirit and put it on the page, and then use those to kind of inform what you now choose. I now choose to create space in my day, even if it's for 5 minutes, that's just all about me. I choose to look in the mirror today and love my body as it is and for all the things that it does. I choose to talk to my boss about a different schedule that allows for more, that allows me to have more impact and less, distraction or busyness, whatever it is. So yeah, that's a really powerful tool. And by the way, in every chapter of this book, at the end of each chapter, there is a tool. And there's also a QR code at the end of the book, and there's a website at the bottom of each of those exercises where you can go online and actually get and download the resources, so you can do those on your own as well, like a workbook.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you included that, because a lot of people, when they have a book and they want to do a workbook, you have to buy the workbook to do the additional work. And I like the fact that you said, no, I'm not going to make it so they have to buy something else. I'm going to include it so that, but they have to, but you're getting traffic to your site, so they're going to look around and they're going to peruse, hopefully, your site. But I love the fact that you said there's value in this, and I'm going to give you value for this.
Yeah. I think a lot of personal, and professional development books and self-help books, they're amazing. I read them all the time. I love them. They're rah-rah. If in my experience, it's like, oh my God, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, oh yeah. Oh, I don't feel alone. Right. I'm like, and what I did in this book is I did some of that. And I also provided like ways in which you can actually start to implement change in your life, because I wanted to provide, this is kind of like your pocket coach is how I would say it. So I added that element of like, here's the exercise, here's the tool, and then here's the actual thing that you can do to help implement this right now.
Yeah. Another thing that you talk about in the book is protecting the energy, because the energy that you put out in the world is the energy that you're going to get back to the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's not right, but I'm a firm believer of that. If you put out positive energy, you're going to get positive back in some way, shape, or form. It may not be positive all the time, but let's talk about that.
What comes up for me when you say that is like my mother, who doesn't, like, she's pretty shy and she's kind of calm, but she does have some road rage. Like that's where she puts out that's where she feels safe to express herself. And when I'm in the car with her, I'm like, Mother, please, for the love of God, do not rage here. like, let's go home and scream into a pillow. Right. But don't like this, because, that people have misplaced anger, right? They have, it's like they haven't necessarily dealt with their own stuff. So I feel like when we are reactive, when there's a reaction like that, like it's not about the guy who just cut her off or whatever, right? It's like there's something in my mother that hasn't expressed. She's probably mad at someone else, or she's mad at herself because she's allowed herself to be treated in a certain way that she doesn't like, and she didn't stand up for herself, right? So I think that we, again, to the point that I think you're making, which is we all get to have that personal responsibility about who we are choosing to be, how we are choosing to show up, how we're choosing to treat ourselves and others, and yeah, I mean, I believe that I believe like you, what we put out, we get back. And what a beautiful thing that we have that opportunity, right? It's kind of like, that becomes our choice. Like I choose to see the humanity in people today. I choose to see that everyone is struggling or thriving, or both, right? I choose to see my fellow person, my neighbor, my equal opposite as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, as a brother, as a father. And I choose to connect, right? And because it's so easy to be reactive about something that has nothing to do with us, but we react. And I encourage people that the personal responsibility really is the ability to respond. And that's what I encourage people to do in the book, is also like choose to respond versus react, because that's how we can begin to change the world, right? We change. In the book also, I have something, I quote a woman named Reverend August Gold and Carol Logan, and they created this song, which is a poem called, it goes, peace in my heart brings peace to my family. Peace in my family brings peace to my community. Peace in my community brings peace to my world. Peace, and let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And that, I think, is kind of the summation of like what's possible when we put out the good stuff. But it starts here. It starts within. Yeah.
For sure, because when you react in the moment, you end up saying things or doing things that you regret later on, and then you end up piling more negative stuff on you as well.
Right. And we can choose to stop that pattern, and again, I think we only can be responsible for ourselves, our actions, our choices, our thoughts, our beliefs, our what we say. And so if there's a willingness to kind of stop and really get reflective and say, how do I really want to show up in this moment? Like, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? And I think that's what gets circulated.
Mm-hmm. And I love the way that you just said that the only thing that we control is how we respond, because so many people, me including, tries to control how everybody else reacts and sees things. And it's kind of hard when you want people to see your way and they're not even willing to even listen to your side of things, or really listening to your perspective. And I think it's important that we all sit down and have conversations where we're listening to each other's perspectives, so that we're getting the whole story and we're creating a story that we all can live together.
Agreed. We are making up stories all the time about other people, and it's just not true. Or it's just it's a sliver of the whole, right? And I'm with you. I love when the unexpected, peeling of the onion occurs,
Mm-hmm.
right? That if we can all look at each other and like seek to just uncover another layer of a stranger, there's just, I just think that's what makes the world go round. And I think that's where we can start to really impact change. Like, again, for me personally, I feel a little powerless in what's going on in the world, right? And I am in many ways. And I'm not powerless over the way I show up, the way I open my heart to people who are like me and who are not like me, and to, call in what is good, right? And not to be Pollyanna about it, but to like, to your point, listen, expand the container, right? Let more things come in so that we can get to the core of who we are and what we want, which I think is, at the end of the day, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And we get to choose that for ourselves first, right? And be the model for what that looks and feels like,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I do Chats from the Blog Cabin. It's because I feel like everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And that sometimes our stories, even though I may not agree with some of the things that people say, they still have a right to say them, and they still have a right to share their stories. And I've learned some amazing things from some amazing people by doing this show. And I mean, some things, like I said, I don't agree with, but I've also learned a different perspective and a different way to look at things, which is important.
I totally celebrate you for doing that. That's awesome. One of the other things that makes me, it reminds me in this, and I don't know, in the book, part of the, I'm at the beginning, I also say I'm giving proceeds. I'm giving a portion of the proceeds from this book to organizations, including Braver Angels, who are choosing to support, inspire, and guide people to bridge the divide in our hearts, minds, communities, and politics, and unite us through understanding, compassion, and kindness. And if you choose to buy the book, then you're contributing to those places as well. And yeah, I just think we all get to be heard. I think that's, as humans, that's what we want, right? We want to be heard. We want to be seen. We want to be loved. And that's what we get to choose. I really think that's how we get to live and lead and joy. And that's how we bring more peace to ourselves and our families and our communities and our nations and our world, So, I mean, I am an optimist, and I do feel better when I say choose versus have to and should. And I just want everybody to stop shoulding all over themselves.
I love that. Now let's talk about your coaching. When people come to you, what's the first thing to make sure that they're the right fit for a coach? Because there's so many coaches out there, but not all people are right for the right person. The right coach.
Yeah.
How do you go about finding the right coach?
That's a great question. Well, I would recommend to interview like 3 coaches before you decide to go with one. And if the coaches, in their integrity, they're also they get a choice in the matter too, right? Like I have had, there's a real difference between coaching and therapy, right? And so I am not a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist. I have a lot of psychological background, and I myself go to therapy, and I studied psychology at the master's level, but I am not a therapist, right? So I have had clients come to me who I felt very strongly were more therapy only clients than coaching clients. And I have lovingly sent them to other people who could be of more service to them. But I mean, a lot of my clients are really curious and evolving humans who want to find more meaning in their life. And they are really looking for the support to gain clarity around what their vision is, what their purpose is, and what their next steps are. And so I have clients, I have life coaching clients who come to me as individuals and kind of really often work on deepening their life's purpose and what that might look like in the doing of it. There's kind of like, who are you being, and then what are you doing, and what is your legacy, and what do you want to bring to the world? And that might be inside the corporation where you are, the company where you're working, but it might also be that you're an entrepreneur or a creative or whatever it is. And then I do a lot of work in the corporate space, which I consider my, I think this work is really important in that space too. And I kind of like infiltrating that world a little bit.
I like you say infiltrating, like you're a spy.
I like to bring my secret sauce and my Jedi mind tricks into the corporate space, so we can live and lead with more joy, ease, and purpose, and that there is more kindness and love and choice and real conscious. When I say choice, it's not just choice, it's conscious choice. It's like being really conscious about all the parts of us that are choosing. So, did I answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, you said if you're someone looking for a coach, to interview at least 3 coaches. And
yeah.
How do you know which one is the right one?
I think it's a feeling. First of all, I think that you get to really check in with your gut. Is this an energetic match? Is this someone that I feel is going to, really be in service to me? A good coach also is, coaching is really, this is what I would say. Even though I wrote a book and I'm an author, and the word, and inside the word inside of the word author translates to authority. I do not come to my coaching as if I am the authority. My philosophy, and I think most good coaches feel that the client is the expert of the client. So while I have all these tools that I can provide for you, my job is to actually have you access your own inner wisdom, your own greatest purpose, your deepest inner truth. And we help you excavate that so that we can look at it. And it's through a lot of powerful questions and listening and reflection back that is expressed and understood and clarified, so that we can electrify and amplify it, but I think that when you're looking for a coach, if the coach makes it all about them, that's no bueno. No. And I think that there's some, I don't have a list of like specific questions to ask, but I do believe that you get to ask a lot of questions. I do a complimentary session with people before we ever choose to work together, because it's a two-way street. You want both parties to really be aligned. And if I'm not the right fit, I have some coaches that I also recommend to other people. And I think the art of, I think when you do go out and interview a few coaches, you'll get a sense of what feels right and who might be best in, who might serve you best. And I think it's a chemistry thing too. It's like dating.
I love that. Now, you mentioned that coaching is not therapy. So what is coaching? What should people, when they come to coaching, what should they expect? Because it's obviously it's not a friendship, because a coach is not going to be your friend, and it's not a therapist where the coach is, they're not going to solve your problems. So what is it exactly, coaching?
You are so well versed in this. I'm so grateful. You're asking me really, really important questions. So the way I describe the difference between coaching and therapy is coaching looks back and says, why that, why me, and digs into the depth of like what actually happened and why. And you're right. Oftentimes, therapists will provide insight, advice, all those things. And that's what's, and feedback, and that it's not really necessarily about the client discovering their own thing. It can be, right? It depends on there's different modalities, certainly, of therapy. But the very simple difference is therapy looks back and coaching looks forward. So coaching says, what's here right now and what do you want, and let's create a plan to get there. And then the support is really, it's not that our devils don't appear. It's not that our limiting beliefs or our stories that suck don't come up. In coaching, we call them gremlins, right? They come up and we deal with them. We just don't go into well, what did your mother do to you? It doesn't go into the depths of the experience. It's really just like, what's the story you're telling yourself? I don't ask the question why so much. I more as like, what's here? What's next? Right?
Yeah.
I might say, how is that serving you? And then the typical answer is like, well, it's not serving me. I'm like, well, if it's still here, it is. So we can talk about like how this story has served you in the past. It might be a defense mechanism. It might be something, but really it's about what is your vision? What is your purpose? What are your core values? What do you want to create in the next 5 years, 1 year, 9 months, 6 months, 3 months? And then what do we need to do today to support you to take baby steps to get to that first level of goals?
Yeah, I love that. And you just mentioned core values. I've got to tell you this. I was in a challenge with a mindset coach, and one of my core values is relationship. And she's like, go online on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and talk about one of your core values. And one of my core values is relationships, but I hated being in front of the camera. I hated talking to people. I was very nervous. I was a teacher. Get me in front of kids all day long. I could talk, not a problem. Give me a bunch of adults or my peers, nervous as like I would start shaking. My hands would my mouth would like blah, 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 But with that challenge, I was like, okay, if I'm going to go live, I'm going to go live with somebody. And so I brought a friend on, and we talked about friendship, and that's how Chats in the Blog Cabin happened.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. I really love that story. I mean, how brave are you? That's beautiful. That's a great, what I would say to that? You know how I would like capture that is action is the antidote to fear.
Yep.
You did it. You dove in, you did it your way. You chose to do it your way. I love that. That's another great part of like the coach provided an exercise in support of you. And then you were like, okay, but I'm going to make it my own. That's a great example of an ideal client.
And it happened right around when COVID happened. So I was like, okay, well, and then a friend of mine's like, well, hey, if you use StreamYard, which is what we're using right now, you can always download the audio in the video, and you can put it on YouTube and put it on a podcast. And I'm like, well, hello, a new stream of income.
That's brilliant. That's amazing. I love how that happens. That's like where the universe is really at play, right? It's like if we stay open to what is wanted and needed, like, and you listen, and the call comes in these small little steps, but it turns into something really powerful. So I honor you for listening and being brave enough to take those steps. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And you also talked about limiting beliefs. What are some of the most common limiting beliefs there are?
Well, I think I heard one of your podcasts where your guest mentioned Brene Brown, and Brene Brown obviously I think has just named the core shame, the core limiting belief of our humanness, which is that we're not enough, right? I'm not enough. Who am I to? Why me, right? And I think that probably is the team captain of all other limiting beliefs, right? I think it's either like I'm not successful enough, or I'm not, or I'm not thin enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not. There's a lot of not enoughness going on, and I think that those are the limiting beliefs. There's another great book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Have you heard of that book?
No, I have
It's
not.
an oldie but goodie. The Big Leap, and I cannot remember the subtitle, but it talks about that basically there's four. So he talks about that there's these basically it's about your zone of genius. It's about getting to your zone of genius. But and he talks about that the difference between our, like, it starts with the zone of competence, no, the zone of incompetence, the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and then the zone of genius is like right here, right? So the difference between the zone of excellence and the zone of genius is like this tiny little thing. And we can liken it to, Tiger Woods shifting his golf club like ever so slightly, and then it changes the trajectory of the ball, right? I'm a tennis fan, so Rafa Nadal did the same thing with his he changed his grip on his serve, and it changed the game and elevated it, right? So it's these tiny little things that, like, I look at it like Oprah went from being like having the talk show, which was her zone of excellence, to owning her own network, which was her zone of genius, right? And that then he goes into the book and he talks about that there are basically four core reasons or limiting beliefs that stop people from getting to their zone of genius. And it's different. And I'm not going to remember all of them, but one is like, with too much success comes too much responsibility. Another one might be like, I don't want to outdo a family member or a friend, or, I can't be more successful than X, Y, and Z in my life. The fear of not being enough is one. And then I never remember the fourth one.
One that didn't really stick with you. Normally the ones that stick with you are the ones you struggle with the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's three of you struggled with in your lifetime.
I try to, yeah. I mean, for me, honestly, I just heard someone say, I recognize, like, I wrote that book and then I kind of like checked out a little bit. It was almost like it was such a big birth for me. And then I kind of got scared of promoting it. And instead of going in, I kind of leaned back. This is really my first foray back into sharing about it. And that's something I get to look at, because it's like, I think I've been hiding a little bit because I have my own compare and despair, or I'm not good enough, or who wants to hear from me, or all this nonsense that I know from an intellectual place is not loving and not true and not kind. And yet, and it's a story that sucks. And so it's what I'm working on shifting. So I am a work in progress. I come to you humbly and with vulnerability, and I'm working this book and this process all the time.
I love the fact that you say you're a work in progress, because a lot of people think in this world that they don't have to learn anymore. They don't have to change. They are who they are, and you either accept them or you don't accept them. I mean, I have family members like that it's hard when you're changing and they can't see the difference in you from when you were little to what you are now. And, they're still putting you in that little girl spot instead of the adult that you are, that's more calm, more serene, more like, okay, you can talk to me about stuff and I'm not going to react, or you're projecting on me things that you do in your life.
You know what, well, you know what I would say about that, right? I think that your triggers are your teachers, right? That's chapter 7, I think. your triggers are your teachers. And I used to say, my sister's a therapist, which is, so we have like both sides of the same, we have the opposite sides of the same coin. And we had a grandmother who has passed, but she was really tough. She was not a nice person. And she was really triggering. And I used to say to my sister, she's such a young soul. Like she's not going to do anything to change and blah, blah, blah. And my sister said, how do you know she's not here to like grow us? Right? To grow. Like, how do you know that she is not our greatest teacher to help us find compassion for someone this mean, like to help us be better in the world? Because this is, and so that's what I mean when it's like your trigger is your teacher. There's an opportunity for those who are doing the work and choosing to expand and evolve as the human that you are, with a soul who's here to create magic. Like, not everybody is going to be on that same evolutionary track as we are, right? And they might have a really important purpose.
Yeah.
That feeds and supports our growth. Maybe not in the way that we want it to look. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I so agree.
It's an interesting concept. And the trigger is your teacher really is a constant practice, because oftentimes they're just our trigger.
Yeah, right. Oftentimes they are a trigger, and then you can't help but put yourself back in the box that you climbed out of, with your thoughts, and then those negative thoughts start kicking back in, and then you got to climb back out of the box, and it seems like it's a rat race. You're constantly climbing in the box, out of the box, in the box, out of the box. At what point do you say, no, stop, I'm not going to be put in the box anymore?
I think that's the practice to even, like, there's another great thing called the 5 chapters of an autobiography. And it says, day 1, I walked down the street and there was a hole in the street and I fell into it. And then, and then the next day I walked down the same street. There was a hole in the street. I fell in, but then I got myself out and I walked down the street. Next day I walked down the same street. I fell in the hole. Or I tried to walk around it. I still fell in the hole. Whatever. 4th day, I walked around. I walked on the same street. I walked around it. 5th day, I took a different street. Right. So it's that. I think it's that. I don't think anything is a magic pill. That's another thing I would say about a coach. If a coach ever says, I am the magic pill that you're going to be, no, that doesn't. That you will get value, and usually it's a 3-month program, and there's a beginning, middle, and end, and then you can re-up. I mean, I have clients who continue on, but this is a process and this is a practice. And the way I think about coaching, and even if you think about it in 3 months, that first month is about kind of like clarifying and like, what do I really want? And like getting all that, getting everything in order. So it's kind of like the setup in some way. I was when I worked in the television industry and film, if in a movie it's a 3-act structure. There's the setup, the conflict, and the resolution, right? So act 1 is the setup. That's month 1. Act 2 is the conflict. That's when all your shit comes up. Am I allowed to say that? It's when all your stuff comes up. It's when all your gremlins show up, because you're making progress. So when you make progress and it's outside of the norm, then your stuff comes up. And then that's when our limiting beliefs are like, who are you? Excuse me. Who are you to do this right now? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. You were in a box last time I put you there, mm-hmm. So it's like, now we get to navigate all that. And the 3rd month ideally is, the resolution, or I like to say also the integration. The intent is to integrate. The intent is we're never going to eradicate those limiting beliefs. They're not going anywhere. The intent is, I like to think about it like we're sending them to the kids' table rather than keeping them at the adult table.
I love that.
And they're going to show up, but how do we, if we have a healthy adult within ourselves sitting at the head of our proverbial table and leading the way, then we can, if those limiting beliefs or those parts of us that want to act out are freaking out, then like a parent, you, instead of throwing the kid out of the car, you're gonna, like a healthy, loving parent is gonna be like, I know you're having a fit. Come here, like sit on my lap, cry it out, but mama's in charge, right? So but again, you get to have support around this, and that's what a coach can provide you with. And I'm sure that's been your experience. You've had a mindset coach. Yeah. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does resonate.
Yeah.
It's really funny when you're talking about putting the child at the table, and taking that child out of your brain and putting it at the children's table. My mom just recently passed, and my mom is one of the people that gave me a lot of. She was a trigger for me. My mom and one of my sisters have always been a trigger for me because of the childhood memory I had when I was told I was sitting there at a Bible school now, at Vacation Bible School, and they were like, I was saying, "Oh, I'm pretty," and they're like, "Don't say that." And then they're like, "Why not?" It's like, because nobody will ever tell you you're pretty. You have to say it yourself. It's going through the whole thing. And I found pictures of myself as a little girl when we were going through my mom's thing. And now, as I'm talking to you, I can look over on my little board and see those pictures of that little girl. And I'm like, she was cute. I don't know why they told her she wasn't pretty. She was cute. So now I have those pictures to remind myself that maybe they thought it, but now I know there's physical evidence. And even my daughters were like, "Mama, you were cute." It doesn't do anything what they're saying, but that's like a physical reminder to me that not to let other people's words get into my head.
Right. And whatever that was about themselves, right? That was about them. It's like people are projecting their own stuff all the time. And it's a matter of, are we going to let it land within us, or are we going to, be the Iron Dome, if you will?
Yeah, for the longest time, it defined who I was as a mom, who I was as a wife, who I was as a friend. And I'm like, man, when I turned 50, I was like, I can't let that define me anymore. So that's when the work started happening. It's when I turned 50, and I'm 55 now. So it's just a change and everything. It's been a gradual change. And one of my sisters saw the change in me because something happened and I didn't react in the moment. I waited it and I sat on it, and the opportunity came out to talk to her about it. I talked to her very calmly about it, and she was like, "Whoa." And I'm like, "Yeah, if I had talked to you when I was upset, words would have come out that were not going to be the best words and would cause hard feelings." I said, "That's why I stay away, because I don't want that negative, toxic in my life." I'm like, "You have to at one point say enough is enough. I can't handle this anymore." And it's hard when it's your family.
Yeah, and you get to, and if you can, and the shift from it's hard when it's your family, that's because that's like a level 1 story. That's a story that sucks, right? Like that can be, if you so choose, you can just start telling yourself a different story about it. You could be like, I am lucky I have family to grow with. This is an opportunity. I'm going to choose to take the opportunity to trust that, like my change is, however subtle, impacting the family in a way that's positive, right?
Yeah.
But it's so natural, and yes, families are our greatest classroom, for our own growth, and it is triggering, and it can be very challenging. And I am not sitting here as someone who has fully healed all of my family stuff. I have not, and I practice a lot too. There's a lot of practice, a lot of intentional choice making, Sometimes I do well, sometimes I screw up. I just keep getting up and, try to, I'm finding the compassion for myself in that first, so that I can have compassion for them,
That is so true. Now, our time is almost up. Before we get into where people can find you, is there one last little nugget that you want to leave people with if they don't get anything else out of the interview, but this one last little piece? What would it be?
Wow. Oh my goodness, you're catching me off guard. I'll just reiterate something I said in the reading, which is, because to me, this is like the core of it all, is that the more intention we bring to the choices we make, the more power we have over the results we create. Like, I know that the world is worlding and people are peopling and life is lifing, and there's a lot going on. And, in my book, I talk about Viktor Frankl, who was a psychologist during he was in the concentration camps, and he talks about the fact that, like, the one thing that people cannot take from us is the the freedom that lives within our minds. Like we have the choice to what we think about, we get to choose. And I think that the more that the more intention that we are really bringing to the choices that we're making, I think that that's where real change can happen in our lives. And then I go back to the prayer about like, you know, in our families and our communities and our nations and our world. And again, it just like, but start small. Like I think if we just start to even change our words from should to choose to, from have to get to, that will begin to change the way we hold ourselves, the way you walk through the world, like the joy you start to feel. And honestly, one baby step at a time. You're doing great, everybody. You're doing great. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle. So choose to be gentle with yourself. That's what I would say.
I love that. Now tell us where they can find the book.
So the book is available anywhere that you buy books online. Amazon, Bookshop, Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, anywhere. And you can just go to Amazon. And this is my website right here, stefziev.com. And on my website, you can also reach out to me if you want to do a complimentary coaching session. And you can, I have something on there called the Leadership Lab. I'm not doing it right now, but I might again very soon. And just, you can play on my website and see what else is there. There's some videos. There's a lot of press. Fun fact, I was on the Sorrentinos at one point, which was an offshoot of Jersey Shore with Michael, the Situation Sorrentino. I was his life coach on that show for a minute. Fun facts about Steph. I had green hair when I was in high school, and I have a picture of that on my website. So, you know, it's fun. So please check out my website and reach out. And I'd love you to buy the book, and I would love to hear. And if you want to leave a review, that would be awesome.
Well, Steph, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing, for writing this book. Like I said, I literally have highlighted almost the whole book. I mean, I got to the point where I was listening to it because I like to listen and do other things. I can't do other things. I've got to stop because every time I was doing something, I'm like, wait a second, okay, let me stop this, highlight, no highlights. So,
that's funny.
I mean, it was that good and really.
Listen to my voice. I did the audiobook. I did it in my closet and I hurt my neck. So that was fun. Oh. It's okay. It's all good. I'm happy that you listened to it.
Well, you have the voice for it too. I can see that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're so nice, and you ask really great questions. So you're doing such a service for your audience, and I just want to say thank you for showing up in your purpose and for inviting me on this podcast. I'm so grateful.
Okay, guys, I will put in the show notes everywhere you can find Steph, as well as I wrote down some of the resources that she was talking about. If I can find them, I'm going to put them in the show notes as well because I think it's very important. But I will tell you, definitely buy the book because those little resources that she includes with those little QR codes, I downloaded every single one of them and printed them out. I haven't done them yet, but I've downloaded them and printed them out.
I love it.
I feel like that's a more intensive way of maybe an extension of journaling as well. So I think that's important for self-reflection to be able to do that. So I'm planning on doing that in the future, but not right now because things are crazy.
One thing at a time.
Yeah, one thing at a time. So thank you so much, Steph, for coming on and for sharing.
Thank you so much.
Okay, until next time, guys, be blessed and remember, keep chatting. Bye.